Welcome everybody. In tonight's video, we will be taking a look at two pry bars. I'm starting to go down the pry bar rabbit hole here, and some of you may know from a previous video, before I show the actual stars of tonight's show, I have been carrying off and on these two pry bars. This is a small Griffin pocket tool. Great little tool to have, but it's kind of missing a little bit. I don't feel like the hype lives up to this tool. It's solid, it's sturdy, it's great. I feel like the bigger one is better than the small ones. If you want to get a Griffin pocket tool, go with the bigger guy. You've also probably seen me talk about the Kershaw PT1. I've taken the little plastic grippy G10 scales off, but this thing is pretty good. It's a great little scraper, great little something fingernail-y that's stronger than your fingernail. But as you can see, this is kind of small, and it could be lacking a little bit in capabilities. So a while back, I got the ability to get two pry bars. One is the Olight Opry 2. I keep thinking Opry. The way they spell it, it looks like Grand Old Opry. Okay, but it's the Opry 2. Opry is one word, O-P-R-Y. And I swear it looks like Opry. I read it Opry 2 in my head. That's just me. And I am not old enough. I have not even been to the Grand Old Opry. I've seen the building from the outside, but I have not been in. I have never been in there. But, and then the Otacle, I believe this is the 2. Otacle 2. Just got this in a little bit ago. So as you can see right off the bat, these are like double the length of this little guy here. And I don't know what this is made out of. I believe this is just standard, like, 440 steel or whatever. But these guys are both titanium with some steel, and this one in particular, copper inserts. I say steel because the screws are very magnetic here, picking up that tool. But we got this delightful copper insert that's starting to patina a little bit, which is nice. I think this is going to be my more favored of the two pry bars here. It is comfortable in hand. I get a 3-finger grip with my fingers here. I could almost get a 4-finger, but you can really get in there and pry stuff. So let's compare the two here, and I'd like to start off focusing on this tool here. This guy is awesome. I love it. It has a few drawbacks, but I feel like this thing is phenomenal. If you've been considering getting it, I'd say go for it. Just be aware of a few things here. One, these are both titanium, so they will mar at the tip, but that's fine. Also, if you're looking between the two, this one has a thinner edge here at the very tip than the Opry 2 with the copper. Not much, but just thin enough that if you're really scraping or really trying to get smaller screws, this might be the one to go with. I got a lanyard hole, and what makes this one really interesting that made me want to get this is not so much the prying ability, but the screws that it comes with, the screwdriver bits. And if you look here, we have this little assembly here, a little trap door of sorts that you can swing out. There's a little detent ball right there, and we'll get into that in a minute here. Things kind of get magnetic inside of this. Now, we come with 3 4mm double-sided bits, and now this does take 4mm, standard 4mm on the end quite well. We have a little driving end here for the bits. This works great. Now when you go to pack this, we have 2 Torxes here, which are great for knife maintenance. This is the big reason why I got this pry bar. We have 2 Allen wrenches, very nice. I'd rather 4 Torxes and just forget the Allen, because you don't use the Allens that much, in my opinion. In the EDC community, you don't come across Allen wrenches too often. Allen screws that need an Allen wrench, you don't come across that often at all. You come across Torx more. So I feel like I would rather see more Torx in bit kits. But we also have a standard 00 Phillips and small flathead. Well, these are very useful. Now, I have seen some people trying to pack these, and they're having trouble. And that issue comes from this cutout here, where you would slide the bits into, is not square like this. It is rounded on the inside. It's like they drilled 2 holes in and then bored through. Now what that does is when you go to put the flathead in, and it's off just a little bit because these are hex sided, if it's off, that flat will grind against that curve of this divot here. We'll see if we can get that kind of more in focus, but you see how that's rounded there? When you go to put if you go to put the flats in first, it's just a nightmare. And you could put them in first if you know how to do it. But for me, I have just decided to just put either the Allen or the Torx, whichever one of those two, in first. Get those down in there, shake them down in there. And when you go to put the flathead in, do not put it in this way into the tool or this way. Put it in with the flat bit going straight down, slicing into it, because that will give it the most room. You see right here, it'll go straight in like so. If you try to go in sideways, you're just going to catch that curve of that cutout, and it's just going to be a nightmare. But if you put it in with that flat head going vertically, they go right in without any trouble, and you can close it up. That's great. So just know that if you're going to go buy this tool, that when you go to put the bits back in, put the Phillips and the flat in last so that you can see that you're putting it in correctly. Until they decide to fix that by making that just a little bit longer of a cutout, you know, this is how you should pack it. Also, it's not happening right now, but when I got this little detent ball right here, underneath there is this little lip that kind of stops it from popping out, but if you're not careful, it will pop out on you. So I'd almost recommend putting some thread locker down underneath of it, because it's solid at the bottom, where just like a tenth of a drop could lock it in place and not gum up the mechanisms. But if you unscrew this screw here and pop that off, you can remove this and the detent ball spring that goes down deep inside of here. That will hold these bits in place and not let them fall out. So you can kind of one shot just kind of fix some of that stuff there if you have a problem. But note that that overhang here does not stop that detent ball from falling out. It's not just the ball, it's a ball in like a little spring set. So I wish, for future reference for Olight here, that they would cut out this little divot right here, cut it out deeper, and have this come out farther over top so that things don't fall apart. Like you could leave the hollowed out section and everything else the same. Just hollow this out more and have this lid part that you can screw in stick out farther. So that, you know, that's just a little something to take note of. Remember to put the flathead in straight so that you can get it in there and close this up. And this thing is solid. I've put it through some abuse. It's great. I love it. This thing is going to be carried a lot. But let's now go into the next star of the show, the Otacle 2. I think this is going to be more carried by me more. And also, the wrench on this is delightful. It does work surprisingly well. I know it looks a little gimmicky, but it actually works pretty good. I'll give it that. It works pretty good. This has less steps, and this, I believe, is metric, because that does not hold a 1/4 inch bit, but this end does hold a 1/4 inch bit. So that's just something to be aware of. Like that wrench, you pop that on something, you pull this way on it some, like, man, that just locks in and turns. It's very handy. But we do have a 1/4 inch leverage extender, you could say, here. That's very nice to have. 4 wrench sizes there, which do not hold the standard, so this has to be metric over here. Both have bottle cap lifters. I feel like it's obvious by now for anyone who's into pry bars. You know the bottle cap lifter function. But we have these that you could screw out and possibly 3D print a new insert of G10, or maybe make your own micarta one, whatever. But I'm going to keep the copper for now. And the little blue screws are very nice. I like the grippiness of it. This thing feels good. And this is small enough to do light cover screws, like the little light switches in your house. You got this little flathead screws. That does go in there, which is something I kind of measure most pry bars by, which is why I did not like this when it came. I had to file that down a lot because that did not do standard little flathead screws, which I would be tightening on a regular basis. So bear that in mind if you want to go get a Griffin pocket tool. But these are the two Olight pry bars. Now I know that they've come out with some new ones by the time this video comes out. They got like a balisong pry tool. Looks really cool and stuff. And also, this one sits deeper in your pocket. It's not deep carry, but it does sit deeper than this one does. So if that's a bugger, you know, bear that in mind. But I don't see any issues with that at all at the moment. I like the kind of standard screwdriver head shape that you would get off of like a good chunky screwdriver, but I also like the flat pry bar shape that you get in here. Like it's really an aesthetics choice. Which one looks like the kind of tool that you want to carry? Which one do you think you would use? I haven't actually used a fair bit since I've got it. They have come in handy, but this is probably going to get packed in a pouch. This is probably going to get packed in here or somewhere and, you know, kept on hand, but not carried. I feel like this is going to be my beater carry pry bar. And I've had both these. I've had that for about a week, had this for a few days. I am loving these. These are so handy. You'd be surprised what you find uses for a pry bar anymore. Also, if you're a leather worker and you want to make your marks on the leather without cutting it, these thin edges of the pry bars are great to run down a ruler and kind of crease the leather so that you know where to cut with it. So maybe consider getting that if you're a leather worker. But I've carried this for quite a while, had that on my keychains, and it was great. It is a really good tool, I will give it that. But I'm liking the extra leverage that I'm getting from the Olight pry tools. And I know I could have done separate videos of these, but I don't feel like I could have done enough of a video per pry tool here to make it worthwhile. So I figured I'd combine the two together, and also that would also let you see these more side by side, how big they are. For size comparison, we have a 91mm Victorinox, very similar in size. Since we're on Olights, here is an Olight Baton 2, S2R Baton 2, very similar in size. So, questions, comments, know where to put them down below. I'll try to get the stuff if you put it down there. But these are the Olight pry tools. Again, this is the Olight Opry 2, as the little trapdoor proclaims. You see where I think Opry. Olight Opry 2. And this is the Olight Otacle 2. I say Otacle. People seem to have the hardest time pronouncing this across the board. Like, you got the Otacle P1, Otacle this, Otacle that. I think Oracle. Like, you hear, like, in Dungeons and Dragons, you gotta go talk to the Oracle or something. So I think Otacle in my head. I could be mispronouncing it, but that's how I think they're wanting it said, because I've heard people say Otacle, Otacle, it gets crazy. So, that is Olight's 2 pry tools. I think this one's kind of going out of style here. I think both these are kind of outdated. They're wanting to move on to newer pry tools, but if you can still get these, I recommend them. They're good. Just be aware of the little gimmicks of this one here with the flathead bits. The other bits work great, but the flathead, you just got to make sure it's lined up when you put it in there. And be careful, because you kind of got to go thunk, thunk, thunk to get the bits out, that you don't lose the little detent ball. Other than that, it's great. And I've only lost the detent ball once. I found it, put it back in, haven't had it pop out yet. So, it could just be a fluke on my end. So, thank you for listening to me ramble. Hope you found this video useful, informational. I hope it helps you build your EDC to your standards. And until the next time, farewell, carry well, and a bye-bye.